all together.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hi.
Brooke, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. This is Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I'm your host, Ben Cross. I'm with the wonderful Brooke Miller. How's it going today?
It's going great.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
What is Friday like at the Honey Hive?
Oh, Friday's actually kind of chill here. Yeah. A lot of moms work from home on Friday or take off on Fridays. So there's a little bit of a lighter vibe here for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
For those of you who don't know, Brooke Miller, my guest today, is not only a speaker, but an entrepreneur, a founder of Honey Space for Moms here in Ferndale, Michigan, and so many other things.
So many hats.
You have such an amazing story.
Thanks.
This kind of, within Love and Relo, this kind of falls under the love category, but it also overlaps into the Relo category, as you'll see kind of through Brooke's story. But I always like to talk about people's stories. I like to get to the whole person. I like to kind of to find our why sometimes as an industry. And, Brooke, would you just tell us just a little bit kind of about yourself and just give us a little snapshot of your story, if you would.
Sure.
I know it's a question, but I know it's like
anyone watching knows me at all. I don't tell short stories.
Well,
but I will.
And before you get started, if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, please leave a comment. Please hit that like button, smash that like button, the celebration button. We will give shout outs here in a minute once we get Brooke's story, and love to get some engagement, love to get some questions for our wonderful host, for myself. And so let's get the conversation going here in the comments. Thanks so much.
Yes, so snapshot of my story. I'm a psychotherapist by trade. So that happened kind of as a result of my own mental health journey. And just kind of like being a mess in my 20s and figuring stuff out and going to therapy and realizing it's really awesome and helpful and went that direction. But I was raised by entrepreneurs, and my dad was in the travel industry my whole life up until about 10, 12 years ago. He's actually in the elder care industry now, which I think is his true passion, which is exciting. And so he traveled quite a bit. My mom was in real estate, and we moved, we relocated for my dad's job, originally from Michigan, left when I was 8.
Okay, so you're from Michigan originally, left when you're 8, and where'd you guys go?
We moved outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And grew up most of my life there. And then my dad relocated again for his job when I was 19 to California. And I wasn't ready to be far away from them. So I left college, or I left the university I was at and transferred and moved to California.
So was there some culture shock there going from the Midwest to California?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I was in LA. I was among a pretty different world. And it was really challenging for me. But I ended up, I was in LA. That's where I sort of found therapy. I always say, like, I was born in Detroit. I grew up in Chicago. I lost myself in Los Angeles.
As do many people. I feel like a lot of people go to LA to find themselves and find their path, but they end up getting further away. You go to LA, you lose yourself. Yeah. And then I went to San Francisco and found myself. Okay. And then moved back to Detroit. Okay. And which is where you are now.
Which is where we are now.
With yourself. Yes. Pursuing your highest and best calling.
Yes, with myself and my little troop, my husband and 2 daughters.
Before we get to your husband, whom I do love, Jason Miller, as many of you watching this probably know Jason Miller over at Quicken, and that's how Brooke and I became acquainted. Also a phenomenal poker player. Thank you, Jason, for all your donations. But one of the cool things I think that's like a little known fact about you, when you mentioned your psychotherapy career, is you were on the Ricky Lake show. Yeah, like tell me, can you just really quickly tell me about that? Unless you're under NDA, can you really quickly tell me?
but I mean, so I think this is also connected to like the rest of kind of who I am in my career in general. But as a therapist, I think a lot of therapists are introverted. A lot of therapists are, we specialize and focus on sitting with people and talking about confidential things. And I am more extroverted and animated, and always sort of grew up like on stage. I was a dancer and all that stuff. And so I sort of organically started pursuing a career as a therapist in the media. I wrote an advice column, and I started doing some TV stuff and some radio stuff, and then ended up being one of the therapists on the last season of Ricky Lake. So I was like in the crowd, like, I remember a very memorable episode where we were talking about cougars and like men dating older women. And, I was like, now turning to Brooke Miller, and I wonder what she thinks about this. And, it was really funny. And, but I started that, in 2012. That was, that year, 2012.
That's cool. That's neat.
That was really fun. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah,
that's funny. And so here you are in Detroit now, and we are coming to you live from Honey Space for Moms in Ferndale, which is a phenomenal space, wonderfully comfortable and inspiring. And I mean, I'm serious. I mean, your office is nicer than my house. But no, it's really a wonderful, inviting space. I mean, can you explain this? What have you created here? Yeah,
so Honey is, I call it an emotionally intelligent co-working space and mental health center. So basically, being a psychotherapist, I was working with clients and specifically working with moms. So when I became a mom about 7.5 years ago, I just realized how much more challenging motherhood was emotionally and logistically than I ever thought possible. And so I was inspired and started, focusing on my career working with moms. Anyway, so when we moved back here, I opened this. I was working with moms in a therapeutic context, and then trying to refer them to things that I felt like they needed and I needed. Group support. There was a huge just conversation about going back to work and trying to work remote, and how do I work remote? It's so expensive for daycare, like all these things, and moms wanting to leave corporate jobs and start their own side hustle and how do you get childcare to do that when you're not making money yet with your business and all that stuff. So I opened Honey, which basically, so it's a full mental health practice. So we now have 7 clinicians.
Wow. So it's not just a fancy, beautiful place to work.
No, there's stuff that happens here.
Wow.
Yeah. Full mental health. So individual and couples, and virtual therapy. And then we have support groups every day and every evening. And then the co-working with on-site childcare. And then just like ton of ancillary services. We have prenatal yoga, birth classes, parenting classes, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So,
our viewers out there are probably like, that sounds really cool, but what does it have to do with relocation?
Yeah. So, when I learned, obviously, as you briefly mentioned, being the wife of a relo guy, and I'm just a very, sort of by nature, very curious person. So I like to learn about all the things, and I ask a lot of questions, and my husband's like, okay, we don't need to talk about
but you're the opposite of my wife. I get home, I'd say one thing about my day, and she's like, shuts me down.
No, I want to know. I want to know everything. My husband has a word for that, but I won't use it. So I learned that because we relocated here. So we were in San Francisco. Jason moved there. We lived there he was there for 13 years. I was there for 16 years. And we moved here for his job.
Yeah.
And so we relocated, and I was finally, before I was the kid, right? I was relocating. My dad just had a job, and I moved because I was told that we were moving.
Yeah.
And now I was part of the conversation of moving here. And we moved here, and I was pregnant, and with our second daughter. And I was like, God, this is really hard. I mean, even though I was from here originally, no one's here. I mean, it's different. Very few family members here, and I didn't I was 8 when I left. It's not like I had like my best friends.
Did you anticipate it being easier? Like, oh, I'm just going back home. It's going to be like hand in glove.
I don't know if I anticipated it being harder or easier. I had found a lot of mom friends where I was, but I wasn't totally rooted and completely happy where I was. So I was completely happy and willing and excited for this change, but I could not find the resources that I was looking for. So hence, starting it myself. But the connection really is when I learned that I was on track and understood that one of the reasons, or really I think it's like the top reason that relocations don't work. The ones that don't work are because there's an unhappy spouse. And I would venture to guess that most of those unhappy spouses in their new location are parents or parents to be. And so the connection really is understanding that, supporting those employees who are relocating is obviously, as the whole industry knows, extremely important. And supporting their family is so important. And it's not just about the logistics, right? It's the move, it's the stuff, it's the house, it's the mortgage, it's the, whatever. But then you have a family or maybe a pregnant spouse or whatever, and you have to find, childcare and support and friends and school and a pediatrician and an OB and all these things. And so really the connection for me is that, yes, we're in a brick and mortar space here, but the way I started having more conversations in the relo world was when I started doing more stuff virtually and supporting people all over the place. And I'm, by proxy in the co-working world, and I've learned that, and I've been curious about how remote working will affect the relocation industry and how it might be that, the permanent relocations may shift, but short-term relocations or corporate housing may be more, I don't know. I'm so curious about all of it.
This is so timely, I feel like, because this week has really become Spouse Week on Love and
Really?
Relo.
Yeah.
Because on Wednesday we had Lauren Herring, CEO of Impact Group, who does spousal assistance for relocation. Yesterday we had Lynn Greenberg, CEO of Pivot, which is an app to help transferees find community. Transferees and their families find community, find those doctors, find that school system, find that, get in touch with people like them. And here you are talking about also creating that landing spot for people when they come in. And I think it's so interesting because Lauren from Impact Group on Wednesday told us, it's not trailing spouses, it's accompanying talent. And if he or she has a career in San Francisco and they happen to come to Detroit to pursue the other's career, they can take their job with them because they're probably an integral, valuable part of that company. Take their job with them, not only find the environment they need to flourish, but also find community. So you're kind of checking both boxes.
100%. I'm talking about it from purely, mostly a mental health perspective that, I say to Jason all the time, can you imagine, if I wasn't well emotionally, not like, and we're not talking about like the stereotypical like Kinsey scale of like depression and anxiety. We're talking about like normal adjustment that is appropriate for human beings to feel like, whoa, like I don't know, like, and so we're not talking about, of course the more extreme cases, sure, but everyone experiences some sort of adjustment.
Well, we were saying that again. I go back to this conversation because it's like two sides of the same coin. When I go back to the conversation we had with Lauren from Impact Group, she's like, and I went through this too with my spouse as we've relocated to several states. There's a period of 6 to 9 months where there's a major emotional upheaval. You're ripping community away. You're putting stress and pressure on. You're putting all this newness of the logistics of the whole thing on, and everybody's worried about the employee and them fitting in and them getting to work on time on Monday. And then
guess who them, Jason, came home to? Me. And I'm the one that was like, everything's great. We're good. I'm taking care of myself.
That's
He
right.
was worried about me.
Yeah.
And I happened to be 5.5 months pregnant when we moved, and I had a really hard pregnancy.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I'm calling my husband with his new job.
Right.
Like, I'm not okay, and I have no one else to call.
Right.
I don't know anyone
Right.
here. So I'm talking about really a very specific sub-demographic, like a niche demographic within the relocation industry, like parents of, antepartum, which is pregnancy through like the first 5 years of parenthood. So that transition time, that time of age of the family. And we're talking about, we do like HIPAA compliant therapist led virtual support groups that either a relocation, company organization can offer to their clients, or an actual employer can offer to their clients or the spouses of the clients. Like if we had moved him, and you mentioned, the company Jason works for, and if when we moved here, he said, oh, look at this benefit, they offer online groups for moms, and it can be either the employee or the spouse. You can join this. I would have been like, sign me up.
Yeah.
And also, can you please send a thank you note to your new boss? Like,
yeah. We're thinking
because
about the
we're
whole
thinking about the
family.
whole package.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I was so in these conversations about spouses all week, because this has been Spouse Week on Love and Relo, and I'm so happy it came together like this.
Yeah.
But I was asking, Impact Group, well, okay, you do spousal assistance. I was like, what about the kids? Because the kids are freaking out too. The kids are probably the most unpredictable piece of this, because they may have friend groups, and they might have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or they have, and the older they get, the harder it gets, right? The more entrenched these groups are, and they might just straight up revolt and say, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But people aren't addressing that either. And the fact that you're offering virtual, which I love is virtual, because here we are in Detroit. This is beautiful.
We're talking about relocation. Everyone's everywhere. It has to be virtual.
That's right.
Yeah.
So virtual spouse, couples, family, counseling, I think is something, I don't even know of any other company that's really offering that within relocation.
Yeah, I mean, there's telehealth, like you can sign up for stuff, and then people have their EAP, right? Like companies have their EAP, but it's generalist.
But being triggered by relocation and housed within the relocation benefit.
Because listen, when you ask about like the connection between parenthood and relocation, I mean, let's really get down to it. What other, name the top transitions in life? There's 3 main, huge transitions: moving, divorce, becoming a parent. And so.
And death.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's not worry about that right now.
When you're the one transitioning, we don't know how you feel about that later. So. But moving and becoming a parent, I mean, the connection is profound as far as understanding the way that the human brain and our emotional body handles transition. So
how does it handle transition, by the way?
There's no answer to that. Yeah, it's all different. I always say nature, nurture, past lives, but that's very woo-woo. But we can go just nature, nurture, right? I mean, nature, nurture, right? It just depends on who you are as a person, how you process things. It also depends on your trauma center and how full it is, or how much of your trauma you've worked through and digested and sort of moved through, or how, if your trauma center is full, meaning you haven't really moved through a lot of your stuff, then handling something like a big transition either could feel like a short-term relief because you're excited to run away from something that's uncomfortable. But once you get there and you're in life and you realize that you can't run away from it comes back again. Or it can feel really stressful because of your, lack of comfort around certain levels of change.
That's funny. My father-in-law always tells me, no matter where you go, there you are. And he's like, so if you didn't like who you were over here, you're not gonna like who you are over there,
Right.
We got some great comments. I think we might have had some problems with the comments. So if you're trying to leave comments, relieve the comments. Mark Musk, greetings from Switzerland.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah, it's wild.
Very
hey, Mark,
cool.
what's up? Let's see here. Kimberly Isaac from Leesburg, Virginia. Thanks, Kimberly. Brent Bergen, Olav Ben from San Jose, California. That's your old neck of the woods.
My old neck of the woods.
Joe Dudek, we know Joe.
Hi, Joe. I know Joe.
Great job, Brooke. You are a great example for entrepreneurs to follow and making a huge difference for moms all over Detroit.
Aww.
That's gotta feel nice.
Thanks, Joe.
Doesn't that feel nice though when people say like these
yes.
amazing things?
It's truly incredible. I mean, like I have like a box of cards that moms have sent us, like, and every single one is like, you changed our family because of it. I didn't. I mean, obviously, this is my baby, so I'm excited about the impact that my third child is making on the world.
Right.
But
your third child's developing a lot quicker than your first two.
Third child is much more high maintenance than the other two sometimes. No, it really feels incredible because the main, isolation is what leads most to postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, all that stuff. And this just simply is reducing isolation. So that's what we're doing here. We're holding the space to reduce isolation, and we do that really well in our space. As you said, it feels really nice here, all that stuff.
Yeah.
We focus a lot on that. But we've figured out a way to also accomplish a level of that virtually, which is kind of, it's just so important. I'm not going to pop up 1,000 honeys all over the country in one fell swoop, or else I'm going to tip over like a lot of these businesses that go too fast.
Right.
So how can we mitigate that right now? As we grow potentially more spaces, then how can we support those who are becoming parents right now? Because people just keep becoming parents. So we'll have a whole new group of clients every day. So yeah.
It's so interesting because I keep thinking about my own life, and we've relocated to all these states, and you get somewhere new, and when you need it most, for some reason we tend to just isolate ourselves, and it's so weird that we do the opposite of what's best for us. I feel like human beings sometimes are the only animals that like do the opposite of what's like actually in our own best interest. And I'm a perfect example of this all the time. But instead of reaching out, we kind of go in, and then when we don't find what we're looking for after several months, then we go to Facebook or we go to
I think
wherever,
I think it's really a combination of like a fear of success in a lot of ways. We talk about fear of failure a lot, but really there's a fear of success because once you're successful, which, your own definition of that, but I think for a lot of people, hopefully included in that definition is happiness, right? And what does that feel like? And then once you get there, then what? I mean, humans we are made up to work towards something. We need to be working towards something. We need to have a purpose. We need to have, a list of goals, all that stuff. And once you are successful, happy, whatever the bullet points are underneath that for you, money, job, like money, health, marriage, kids, mental health, all these things, then what? So I think we need to put ourselves in a position of having to work towards something. So we often will pull back from what we know is best for ourselves, because if everything works out, there's nothing left to do.
Fear of success is such an interesting concept. It's so counterintuitive. People don't understand it, but I think it's more prevalent than fear of, I don't know if more prevalent, but I think
it's the opposite side of the same coin.
Yes.
Right? The higher you rise, the further you can fall. And so it's fear of falling, which is fear of rising.
I think well, somebody illustrated it to me one time with the question, if you could do anything in the world and know you were going to be successful at it, what would you do? And I was like, I don't know, be a rock star or whatever. I didn't say that. I forget what I said. Anyway, be a public speaker. Maybe I said be a public speaker, right? And they're like, okay, now pretend that, no, actually go do that, because I'm telling you won't fail if you just try and don't give up. And it's like the idea that you could literally do almost anything is a scary proposition for a lot of people. But I mean, here you are you're living that right now. I feel like with this project, it's hard. You're walking out there in faith and in confidence.
I mean,
that you're
the
gonna be
biggest
successful.
mistakes I've made in business so far have been when I act out of fear versus acting out of love and confidence and, feeling secure in things. But I think that choice is it's paralyzing, making choices about things. Like my dad used to give me the example of like, when I was young, I went to the store and there were 3 cereals to choose from. And now you go and there's 300 cereals to choose from. And you stand in front of 3 cereals and you're like, I'll take that one. And you stand in front of 300 and you're like,
right.
Right. Choice is paralyzing. So it's hard to figure out what you want to do.
Let's see. We've got a few more comments here. Yeah. Let's see. I love to give shout outs. I love when people watch. I love when you comment and you get engaged in the conversation. We've got another Californian here, Joe Fick. He was on the show yesterday.
Nice.
Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Joe.
Yep. Let's see here. We got some more here on LinkedIn. Everybody, if you're watching, you haven't left a comment, please leave a comment. That's how I know you're there. Also, hit that like button. Appreciate you. Janet Turner. Hey, from Florida. Love you, Janet. Michael Cadden, Milford, Connecticut. Kirk Bluebaugh, Ward, North American, Phoenix, Arizona.
Nice. That's so fun.
Jason Miller. Who's this guy? Just testing this out, as someone told me. They wrote a comment. It didn't show up. Is this working? Jason, Jason, is this on? All right, yeah, Jason, we got you, buddy, loud and clear. Janet Turner. Oh, Janet Turner has a question. Can you repeat what the honey stands for, please?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, tell us about the name.
Oh, yeah, the name. So I don't have some sort of affinity for like bees or anything.
Yeah, you have like a bee colony.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, I was trying to figure out the name, and Jason will be happy I tell this part of the story. So he said, because I always like put honey in my tea and whatever every day. So we were like, what should be the name? I can't do this without a name. And we were at home and he was standing in the kitchen. He was like, what about pure honey? Because the honey was staying there. And I was like, no. Anyway, and I moved on. And then I was talking to a friend because, it's easier to listen to a friend than your spouse.
Right, because your friend has a possibility of being right, but your spouse never has zero chance. Right.
So I was talking to a friend of mine and I, we were just talking about the name and she's like, don't worry, you'll figure it out. I'm like, all right, honey, I'll talk to you later. And I hung up. And she called me back. She goes, you called me honey. You always call everyone honey. That's what you call everyone. She's like, it's like a term of endearment. That's what it's all about. So honey is really about, it's a term of endearment. It's like if I hug you and call you honey, that's what I want everyone to feel when they come here, whether I am here to hug you and call you honey or not. It's that feeling. It's that endearment. So that's what honey is all about. So actually my daughter Gigi was just, she was like coloring a bee and she was like, Mommy, it's a bee for honey. And I was like, well, you know who the real honeys are, right? She's like, me, Pearly, and Daddy. I know. So it's all about community.
So you were talking about, not acting out of fear, but acting out of love. I absolutely love that. I think so often people get afraid to put themselves out there in some way. And the fear of putting yourself out there is because you're doing it for a selfish reason. Right. But when instead you do it out of love and to help others, it's not like about you anymore.
Self-love too. Like I love and appreciate and respect myself so much that I know that the world deserves to have a little bit of me. So I'm going to go out there. I
have something to share. I can, but see that for me, that's like, I can enrich someone else. Therefore I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
So now here you have honey, space for moms.
And mom's walking in.
I know we actually have like real moms, real moms, not camera ready moms. These are real moms. Okay, the babies may be crying. I don't know. But so we have all the moms and everything. But I think this is such a great idea. I'd love to work from a place like this. What other ideas, might there be out there or other types of people that you might want to support,
So are you asking me about dads?
I feel kind of like I want a cool place to hang out and work and bring my kids to, every morning. So every morning I get my baby in the morning because he wakes about 6 o'clock. He's 1.5, he'll be 2 in May. And so, you know, and he's standing in his crib, you know, like, Daddy, or he's actually saying, Mommy, and Mommy's texting me, you get him, you know, and I'm like, all right, I'll get him, you know. And so I get Steven, and we spend, you know, half hour and give Mom extra little bit of shut eye, spend a half hour in the morning, and I'm just like, I just want to take you to work with me, you know, today. But I know people are going to look at me like I'm absolutely nuts. Well, no, I do. I mean, I don't do anything anyway. I mean, you can sit on my chair and just do whatever I do, which is, you know, not much. And then, but I just want to bring him. I just want to dress him up and bring him to work with me and stuff.
Dress him up.
I do.
I love it.
My little guy.
In your little three-piece suit. Does he have a three-piece suit like you?
No, these are expensive. Are you kidding me? Grow out of these things like that, no problem. But yeah. Anyway, so but I would love to be able to have him, you know, next door or something.
Yeah,
you know?
taking the lunch in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheeks.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So we've had a lot of dads ask the same question. I mean, listen, it's so rare, I think, because a lot of businesses act out of fear and not out of love. I think it's really, really challenging to, once you have a niche, to stick with it, because there's this, I think, false understanding in the world of marketing that if there's this idea, you cast a wide net. Right? Cast a wide net and
shotgun approach.
Yeah, like you catch as many clients as you possibly can. Right. For this, you know, to me, I think instead of casting a wide net, I call it put their name in lights. So if you see your name in lights, then you're like, oh, that's for me, right? If it's like honey for people, it's like, I don't know what the hell that is.
What does that mean? It's too broad.
What is that? Honey for space for moms. Like, oh, I'm a mom. I'm a niche demographic, right? That's for me.
Yeah.
So it's really important to me to keep with that, you know, with that niche and with that demographic. And also I think it's rare that like women have a safe place. Someone said, where do you go to breastfeed here? I was like, I'm literally the only man in this office right now. You just go. It's a really, really not only safe but sacred space. And it's not that I don't want to support dads. I mean, I am married to an incredible father who's actually working from home right now because we have a sick kid. We're very, you know, great partnership in that sense too. So I do support dads. I need to take some time to figure out how to support dads while maintaining the sacred space that is this space for women.
And continuing to grow it, because let's be honest, I mean, you haven't even begun to hit your full, you know, potential, you know what I mean, with this idea. This concept to me is, I mean, sorry, I don't know if you feel the same way. I feel like this concept has enormous potential nationwide, you know, and like,
it
so,
does.
you know,
it's
to
scary,
get off,
exciting.
you're scared of your fear of success.
There's fear of success, right? And there's also, I just said to someone the other day, so there's also fear of not picking up my kids from school every day at 3:15, right? So I've built something that I have to practice. I don't have to, I choose to, I want to practice what I preach, right? So there's this idea of this ebb and flow as a mom, that these are the things I want as a mom. These are the things I want as a professional. And I think that present parenthood and productive career can coexist. And I think there's just a recipe to make that happen. And that recipe is it means that it's not going to happen every day. And it means that you have a huge support network and you have, you know, all these kinds of things. So yeah, it does have a lot of potential, and I don't want to get into that fear-based space, which I think a lot of people, you know, they'll try to grow it really fast because of, I don't know, I mean, unknown greed or ego or, you know, whatever it is. So I want this to grow really organically, just like parenthood, you know, like it's just like every day you're like, oh, this is intense and beautiful and amazing. So in any case, yes, Honey for Moms has a lot of potential to grow. We're growing it in a lot of different ways. I think the consulting, like corporate, organizational support piece is a division that can grow, that I'm working on with the online groups and all that.
Yeah, I would love it. If you're watching this right now, we've got about 25 people on LinkedIn. We got a half dozen people on Facebook. If you're watching this right now and you're in the relocation and mobility industry, I would love to hear your thoughts on how we can plug in this type of, family. How would you term your online and virtual counseling for families? The support that you offer.
So the groups are like, I just call them parental support groups, like employee. It's an employee benefit.
It's an employee benefit.
So parental support groups. But the other pieces we do. So I just launched. Super excited about it. Is a reentry coach certification. So it's called a Honey Workplace Reentry Coach certification.
So you're coming back from.
People can become reentry coaches. So like companies can send HR, LOA, whoever from their company.
LOA, leave of absence.
Leave of absence,
okay.
Yes. Professionals to this training. They will become certified as reentry coaches. Part of their certification is gaining knowledge in perinatal mental health, gaining knowledge in elder care, because a lot of people will leave work for a short period of time to take care of their parents. Gaining knowledge in certain transition life coaching skills and things like that. And then the company has a reentry coach that is there within the company. And so when someone reenters the workplace after leaving for maternity leave, paternity leave, taking care of a parent, or just leaves for a period of time and is transitioning back because of relocation, that reentry coach is available to support them in that process with resources and tools and things like that. So
yeah, I would think as maternity leave becomes longer, and now you're seeing 6 months, you're seeing longer stints, you're seeing more paternity leave as well. I would think almost like that reentry orientation, reentry coaching becomes more important the longer you're gone.
Yeah, so
I take a week off and I need a reentry coach.
Totally.
So if I took 6 months off, I wouldn't know.
So there's some controversy. Well, I wouldn't. Controversy is a big word, but there is this understanding by a lot of organizations that are, parent-led, parent-focused about corporate America, that if you spend more money and you create a longer parental leave time, then all your problems will be solved. And I would love there to be a longer parental leave time, right? I'm a therapist. I understand attachment and healthy attachment. And I do think that paid leave a little bit longer is important. However, is not going to answer all your problems.
Right.
It's not a solution. It's not a holistic solution. It is one of the ingredients of a very complex recipe. In Australia, they have a year leave, and they have so many issues, so many lawsuits, so many challenges with reentry. People come back, they are not respected. They are, they feel, people are being discriminated against. There's comments, lack of education from a management leadership perspective on the mind of the parent. Like your brain, you lose 5% of gray matter when you have brain gray matter when you have a baby. So when people talk about mommy brain, it's literally mommy brain. You don't lose 5% of gray matter and then it's just emptiness. You lose 5% of gray matter and your brain changes to accommodate motherhood and become mama bear. Like moms out there can probably understand what I'm saying when, you have everything you need for your baby. Diapers, blankets, clothes, you're like mama bear, like you are primal as all hell. But then you're like, Ty.
You can't remember it.
So you go back to work and you're like, I know how to mom, right? It's hard, it's overwhelming. I don't really know how to do it, but like you're primal, like you can hear your baby's cry from 9 miles away because you can feel it in your cells, but you don't know what you're doing at work. It's just, it's overwhelming and you get inundated. So in any case, re-entry is so I've been saying lately, like, I just want to let go of the leave for a minute and welcome the reentry. Let's talk about reentry. Let's change the perspective. So when you are a HR or LOA, professional, and you're talking to people who are going to be taking a maternity leave, people are coming or interviewing for the job, right? We're talking about recruitment. Like they're interviewing and they say, well, what's your leave policy? I'll tell you our leave policy, but how about let's talk about our reentry policy and how we're going to welcome you back when, you know, you have a baby, for example, and let's talk about how we're going to support you as a parent and how excited we are for you to grow your family while you're growing your experience with our family as an organization. And let me tell you all the things we have for your journey in parenthood and when you come back. So instead of talking about how people are leaving, let's talk about how people are coming back and what that's going to look like.
I have one quick question, then we're going to get to all these questions because we have a lot of people just blowing up with questions here. Okay? I think you really touched on something.
Okay.
But can leave be too long?
I mean, I don't know. I think it depends on the company. It depends on the position. It depends on what happens during leave. I think like the problem is that leave is often like this black hole, right? Mm-hmm. Because of confidentiality, you can't reach out to the person. So one of the things that our reentry coaches learn to do is we have certain confidentiality agreement, like the employee will sign saying that the reentry coach can reach out to them. And we have touch points while they're gone. So I think that the answer is yes, it can be too long if it's a complete black hole because you don't know what's happening with that person while they're gone. They could be in a really unhealthy space. And so you want to make sure that during leave, you as a company are setting yourself up to support them during that time frame. So if there's support and if there's a plan to reenter, then I don't necessarily think it can be too long, but I also like in our country, we don't have that many experiences of it being too long. Unless people are leaving work and then coming back.
It's not like Australia where it's a year. It's like, you know, you're getting 6 weeks maybe.
Right, and there's many moms who leave their job and then years later they re-enter the workforce. And I think they're absolutely incredible resources. I mean, no one manages their time like a mom. You know, we know how to get stuff done.
Let's see here. We got a couple questions here. Melissa Cohen, what about as the babies grow up? Say you'll be there the whole time. I think she was responding earlier to what's the future of honey and how do you balance everything? Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I think as my babies grow, I mean, they're 5 and 7.
They're not going to need you the way they need you.
Well, I'm going to also see the need for. Well, we do have. I mean, we have a Just Mama package here. So people who don't use childcare, but they come here to work because they want to be among moms. So, and then we have groups like Mothers Without Mothers. That has nothing to do with how old your kid is. Mothers Without Fathers. That has nothing to do with how old your kid is. You know, the Soul of Motherhood is a group that I lead every week. That has nothing to do with how old your kid is. So we definitely have age-specific things, but Melissa, who I love, we will be here. We are here.
So let's see here. We got some other ones here. Jason Miller, Ben, she is finally including me in the story for the first time. You know, sometimes as dads, we just want a little credit. We don't, you know, we respect everything. We just want like a little, can I get a little bit of.
Also sad during the first years of parenthood, everyone would say to Jason, like it was like one of those jokes where you're like, haha, I haven't heard that one before. People will say to him, what did you have to do? Are you even the father? Because our kids both look a lot like me or did, and they're changing whatever, but they're like, what did you have to do with it? And he's like, funny.
Yeah.
Be included.
Jamie Masler, hi, Ben and Brooke, Corporate Housing Associates, South Haven, Mississippi, checking in. Appreciate you. Olivia Barami has a couple little questions. Great conversation. As a new mom, I can totally relate with what Brooke is saying.
Hi, Olivia.
She goes on to say, she's the founder and CEO of Prime Communications. She goes on to say, in Canada, we have 12 and 18 months parental leave, which can be shared between mom and dad. That's an interesting system.
We have it's obviously it's not a United States thing, but there are some companies who do that and you can share it. And I know definitely a lot of families who do that. The mom will take, the first 12 weeks or so, and then maybe they use a certain amount of childcare, and then dad goes. So they, tag team back and forth and use it. I know it was really hard for me when Jason had to go back to work I mean, he had ERC. My daughter was born in October, early October, and he had ERC. And so literally it was like he left for Chicago that week that she was born, and my mom was there. And, you know, it was really hard. It was really hard. But
I know exactly what you mean. The only ERC conference I've ever missed was when my second son was born the week of like May 15th.
Yeah, and it was his first ERC. So it was right when he started.
Oh, with Quicken when he came. Oh wow, yeah. So you got to show. That's tough.
Yeah,
it's really tough.
Yeah. And I'm lucky because I had my mom who came in town and was here for that time. And if she wasn't here, I don't think he would have gone. But
you know, and that's another thing that we forget too when we relocate employees or when we are relocated is the lack of support at wherever you land, right? I mean, it's rare that you're going to move necessarily back home or around support. I mean, you know, I remember we were in North Carolina when my first son was born, and then we were in Michigan when my second son was born. We had no family in either location. You know, so difficult for my wife.
Yeah, so many moms who come here, they say, "Oh, we moved here for my husband's job," and then they meet their community here for sure. Yeah. But I mean, you know, thankfully, you know, maternity leave. There's lots of conversation about maternity leave, paternity leave. There's tons of conversation about paternity leave. However, even when paternity leave is offered, a lot of dads don't take it because there's just this cultural understanding with men that's, you know, that they're just work, and they don't, you know, take a break. But people don't realize, like, postpartum depression and anxiety is very common in men. It's not, people always say, like, oh, it's the hormone, it's just hormones, postpartum. I'm like, I need to just stop talking right now because hormones is one ingredient, again, to a very complex recipe. But also, you know, other than isolation, but the expectation reality gap, I always call the ERG, the ERG is a huge reason that postpartum depression and anxiety can build up in men too. You have this expectation of what parenthood is going to look like. Then you have this reality, and sort of that space in between can be depression and anxiety. And it looks so much different in men. It can look like workaholism. It can look like
Is that how we cope? Is that how we cope?
I mean, I don't think it's a we. I think everyone's so different. So I'm not going to put all men into a one category or stereotype. And yes, it's very commonly. So men will say, "Oh, I'm fine. I have friends. I'm out all the time. I'm working all the time. I'm doing great at work. You know, I'm golfing every weekend. It's great." And then the partner is calling like, right, I literally never see you. Like, you never see our child because you go to work so early, you come back late you're avoiding the discomfort of the change that is parenthood. Jeez. So paternity leave.
Way to call me out, bro. Jeez. Oh my gosh, I feel so convicted right now. Next question.
We're doing a session next.
Wow, so much for HIPAA. Noelia Perez from Oakwood. Brooke, great work on this holistic approach. Nice niche, and thanks for your laser focus on the family.
Oh, thank you.
Jamie Massler, having lived in Memphis for over 25 years, this would be a great tool for St. Jude families, extended leaves for cancer or other extended leave illnesses for when they return
100%.
to work.
That's the reentry stuff. That is, so another module in our reentry coach certification is on illness and loss. So from miscarriage to loss of a child to dealing with illness with a child or a parent or child. So miscarriage, loss, death, and dying is obviously a huge reason why people pause from work or take a leave of absence, and then eventually they may come back and things have changed. Life is different. You look at things very differently. You manage your time differently. Your outlook on things may be different. Your goals may be different, right? Sometimes I have so many moms who come here and they're like, "Oh, before I became a mom, my goal was to be CEO. And now my goal is just to make enough money and leave at 5. And I'm good and I'm actually okay with that." But the transition of that goal from one to the other can be really painful.
Mm-hmm.
That shift in narrative. Like, I never imagined that I wouldn't care about climbing the ladder to the top, but I actually don't. But for 35 years I did. So now who am I?
What am I?
What's even happening?
Right, what's
so
my
that
identity?
authentic goal versus that sort of seduction of the goal of the,
and I gotta think, like, is that okay? Like they for, to your point, for 10 years I've been climbing the corporate ladder. I made it to director, and I wanted to be a senior vice president or CEO one day, and now all of a sudden that doesn't matter anymore. Is that okay? Is that, like, did I waste that time? Like, it's because, I mean, there's a sunk cost, right? You're like, well, I invested so much time in this career to just walk away from it and change.
Well, that's like saying, is any relationship that doesn't work out okay?
Mm-hmm.
Of course. I mean, if you leave a relationship without lessons, whether it be, I know what kind of relationship I'm never going to get into again, or without learning something.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard of that before, right? There might be unconscious lessons, like you don't realize what you learned, but you always learn something from, any kind of professional development, any kind of relationship, any kind of job for 10 years. You're going to learn something, you're going to gain something, you're going to grow. And it's likely that you wouldn't have the interest or the skill set or the community, right? Like in your example, I don't know your story exactly, but you worked for 10 years and you built a community that now your narrative has shifted, your goals have shifted. Now you're doing this show, and look how many people you have watching you and excited for you because they got to know you the last 10 years.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
People ask me all the time, how do I get so much engagement? Like, these people are actually my friends. I mean,
right.
I've been hanging out for 10 years, so like them tuning in is just like,
right.
Hey,
right,
thanks,
and that's
friends.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Let's see here. Speaking of pivot, Joe Fick from Pivot tuned in here to, it looks like to kind of throw a little love and / plug in here. We have provided a social well-being network pre and post. Pivotapp.com. Smart people like Brooke are exactly the mobility industry recommendation professionals in a local footprint that we must have to help families find to eliminate employee churn. First part here, what he's talking about is when people go on to their app, they can say, hey, is there a great space for moms to connect? Yeah, Honey's awesome.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah.
The next thing, by the way, I'm very familiar with how Detroit is a very different assignment than DC. My brother, Robert Fick, played for the Tigers and National Spousal Networks, especially when children are involved. Pros like Brooke are critical, but we have to be, man, it's a long comment, bro. It's a long comment, Joe. Brooke Miller, exactly. We are bringing that mobility platform to find our services pre and post boom, reduce employee churn, both spouses are a huge concern. Yeah, so
everyone can understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm sorry. This is really about me and me understanding, not you. If that wasn't apparent before.
He's saying this is great and it's critical, and we should also connect with him about that app because then people can know that.
Yeah, that, and I think Impact Group as well. And there's a few different networks, and I'm happy to make some introductions as well, because I think what you're doing is you're almost taking spousal assistance, I think, maybe a step further, and also talking about as part of the family. It's like family. It's because there's one thing to assist the transferee. It's nothing to assist the spouse. There's nothing for kids that I know of, and then to talk to them all, well, in couples and as a family unit, I think we don't. I don't think that we treat well. Given some of your guests and some of the conversations, I will say I think that there is a shift in the industry, right? And I think that shift can continue to develop in treating relocation as it's not an individual decision. It's a family decision. Yes.
Right? My husband and I sat down. We had a 2-year-old. I was 5 months pregnant. Are we going to move to Detroit? Like, this is a big decision. And it wasn't something that he was like, yeah, no problem. Like, it's a conversation. Like, you have a family, right? You were trying to create a society where both parents are involved. Dads are so much more involved than they used to be in their families, and moms are so much more involved in the balance of, work and family than they have been for quite some time. And we're all trying to just figure it out together. So there's a reason why I was like, well, Gigi's sick today and I have Ben's show. So you're the one, hopefully, that can stay home. And thankfully, we both have flexible lives. That I stayed home yesterday and worked from home, and he stayed home today. So it's a family decision. Relocation is a family issue.
Yeah.
It's not a one employee issue. And if the person who is the employee is receiving the support through group or whatever, then that's affecting the family in a positive way as well. So it's not just spousal support or family support, it's employee support. It's the whole system, right?
Yeah.
I'm a systems therapist, so
well, I think you're right.
systems,
Well,
right?
You're right though, and that is an untapped need. And I think to echo something you were saying about it's a family decision. I mean, I think anytime a transferee has a conversation and it's a quick decision, it is not a well-informed, well-thought-out decision. In my experience, having moved to probably 4 or 5 states with my wife, it is a conversation over weeks that happens. Like, hey, would you be open to this? Then there's the first blush answer, yes or no. And then there's always the counter, like 2 days later, the counter argument. Well, but I didn't consider this, and this.
Well, then it's like, what's the relocation package, right? So when you guys talk about the relocation package, because I learned a lot about that in my own experience, and like there's the logistics, there's the transactional relocation package, like how much money are you going to give us to spend on a mover, or are you paying for it for us, and all, all those things. And then there's the holistic package that is beyond the transactional, and it's the emotional package. It's the human part of this, right? There's the robotic transactional package, and then there's the human part of the package, which is, you're going to get X amount of dollars towards your move, blah, 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 blah. And you're also, we want you to know, here are the transitional reentry, relocation, family opportunities here in this package. Like, you can do virtual groups. We have a reentry coach. We have something we call day 0, where your first day, you're not actually doing anything. It's all about transitioning in and getting to know people. All those types of things, and organizations like those that you've talked to this week, here's this, and this, and you can get an OB, and you can find a doctor, and tour schools, and all those kinds of things.
If I'm an organization, if I'm a mobility manager, and I'm looking at what the services that you've described, the way I would design it is I would start pre-decision. And I would say, we think as an organization, we think that you would be a good fit for this opportunity over here. We would like to offer you that, but before we do, we would like you and your wife and your stakeholders. Who do you want to be in the room? But we think it should be a systems approach. Should have a conversation, and we call it pre-decision counseling. And a lot of times it looks at demographics and would they be a good fit. But I think we should also talk and have a conversation, and somebody who's trained to identify these things could say, you know what, there's some friction around this, there's some friction around this. They have some, and you don't have to necessarily share that.
Counseling, baby.
Yeah, it's pre-relocation counseling, and we don't necessarily have to share with the employer what some of those friction points are, but we might even just share them back to the employee and say, I think you might want to resolve this, and maybe we can talk another time or two, and then come to a consensus on this.
I mean, I think there's whoever this pre-decision relocation counselor is, right, would have a certain level of training and understanding to have that kind of conversation in a confidential and supportive way. The ROI on something like that is truly, we want those numbers of successful relocations to rise, right? We don't want so many relocations that don't work.
Well, they don't, they don't work, right. They don't work, and they don't work for a number of reasons. So many of them are personal. We have another question here, a comment here from April Falconberry. Just want everyone to know that Brooke and Honey do amazing work, and I'm a great mother because of them. Go, Brooke.
I love it. April's such a sweetheart.
How nice.
Hi.
Oh my gosh. So sweet. I mean, that's got to feel good when that's the product of your work.
It's awesome.
Me, I move trucks around. You impact lives. That's really neat.
Well, and look what you're doing now.
Yeah.
You're giving a voice to a lot of really amazing organizations and people to share things to better your industry. And we're talking about, relocation, and sure, move trucks around, but there was a truck moved around for my family, and now we're here. And now I built Honey because we moved to Michigan. California, I don't know that I would have taken the risk of an investment to open a business there. It's just a lot more difficult there, right? So because I relocated, I opened Honey, and now we're getting comments like that, right? So I think the relocation industry is a really important industry and has the ability to really come from a loving space, which is love and relo, right? Like where you're coming from.
Way to put a bow on it. I appreciate that. Well, and that's because you're such a great speaker too. And Brooke did speak at the Detroit Regional Relocation Council when we actually hosted the Great Lakes Relocation Conference here last year, and you were our keynote.
Yeah.
And that was kind of cool, huh?
That was fun, yeah.
And so she did a phenomenal job. She's got a lot more to her story. We didn't even get to touch on so many really wonderful things that anyway, point is, if you need a speaker, she's fantastic.
Thank you.
How can people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you about speaking or maybe about some of these counseling services?
Yeah, just email me directly. Brooke, Brooke. Brooke without an E is a body of water, by the way. Brooke with an E is a human being.
There might be a Brooke out there with no E who's feeling really bad about herself.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe a male with an S at the end.
Well, we don't care about them, right?
Brooke, BROOKE at honeyformoms.com. HONEYFOR.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Brooke. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Oh my God, I went so fast.
This is great, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
It was fun.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. Don't forget, next week, we've got Bob Berg, the author of The Go-Giver, going to be on Wednesday, and we are preceding that on Tuesday with a open discussion. And I'm still looking for a few of you to come on live with me to talk about your favorite chapters in that book and have a virtual book club on LinkedIn.
Look at you.
And then we're going to have the author on Wednesday come in and talk.
You're doing such important
Thank
work.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I love you, honey, at home if you're watching this. Take care. Bye.
Bye.